Alright, David Harry here, and in this video I'm going to put forward to you my own personal camera conspiracy, which goes along the lines of: I don't believe that the Sony ZV-1 was ever designed from the ground up to have been a vlogging camera, and the term vlogging camera got attached to this camera 5 minutes before release by some over-enthusiastic marketing department at Sony. Now, I know there's probably going to be a bunch of people who are thinking, what is this crank on about? Or there's going to be a whole bunch of other people who are going, yeah, right, I'm going to switch this one off. That's all fine. However, if at the end of this video I will have been able to have give some people food for thought, then I think it's worth me doing this and kind of putting my neck out on the line here. Anyway, so why do I think this? Right, when I did my unboxing, I made a little bit of a quip, a little quick joke about something during the unboxing. But when I looked back at it, I thought, actually, that's not such a jokey thing that I actually said during the unboxing. Now, what I've noticed is the main box for the camera has got nothing to do with vlogging written on it anywhere. So there is not one word of vlogging anywhere on that box. And indeed, on the help guide as well inside the box, that doesn't mention vlogging in that either. So those two things don't mention vlogging in any way whatsoever. However, that shroud thing that kind of gets put over the main box, that does nothing but say vlogging. So that's got like made for vlogging written all over the place. So with that in mind then, here is what I'm thinking. During the design stages of the ZV-1, at some point, do you know physically its exact size? And then what do? They go to the next department. Look, here's the camera specifications for its size and dimensions. Go ahead and start putting the box together and put the manuals out, get all that stuff ready. So that stuff takes probably a bit longer to do than actually the manufacturing of the final camera. So what they want to do, so that they're very quick to release, have the box and all the paperwork done. So as soon as the camera's ready, pop it in the box, sell it. Now, at that point, I think what's happened is somebody in the marketing department has gone, let's call this a vlogging camera. Come on, let's just do that. And all they've got to do then is spend very little money and very quickly make what is basically just a card like that slips over the box. And as soon as you put on there, made for vlogging, who's going to argue that it is not a vlogging camera? Okay, so a bit more detail then as to my little conspiracy theory, and how this one goes. Now, here's the thing for me to put it into context as to what I think it is, because straight away, I actually think that this camera is meant to be something in the RX100 series, and quite possibly, an RX100 Lite or something like that. And here's how I get to that. If you look at, say, Google or Apple, they've got products there which are essentially stripped down versions of their flagship products. So say with Google, you've got the Pixel 3 and then you've got the Pixel 3a. So what Google have done is gone, look, we've already got all the facilities to make all these things, and we've got a whole bunch of off-the-shelf parts. Why don't we try and cut some corners, still using the good bits that we've got, and make a cheaper product which is still great that we can put out there and a lot more people can afford it? And I think that's great. And then Apple also did the same with the SC, this year's SC, the 2020 version. Apple already had all the stuff on the shelves, and they've gone, right, how can we put a phone together here which is still really good, but how can we manufacture it cheaper and sell it for cheaper? And so they come up with the SC, which has got it's cut down because of the size of the screen, but it's got an overly powerful CPU in. And in fact, that iPhone SE 2020 is quite possibly, it's one of the most powerfulest smartphones at the moment, along with the 11, because it's got the same CPU and stuff in it. So you've got products by companies who have already got a main product line, and what you can do is kind of cut a few corners and still make a great product because they've already got all the stuff off the shelves. Now you get this elsewhere as well within, like, you know, the tech industries, like the light version of a something. And indeed this year Google are going to be bringing out the Pixel 4a, which by all accounts has got the exact same camera system as the 4, but they just cut a bunch of corners and still give you a phone that's got an amazing camera on. It'll have a weaker CPU on it, which most people probably won't be that bothered about because they just want the camera, and as long as the CPU can support the camera functions, you don't mind. So the 4A comes out and I'm thoroughly convinced that's going to do mega well, because once again it's just a manufacturer looking at their flagship line and cutting it down a bit and making it a bit more affordable. Now I think that is exactly what the ZV-1 was meant to have been for Sony. I think that this was meant to have been a cut down of the RX100 series and basically the light version of something. Let's just say the RX100 Mark 7 Lite, or whatever it would have been called if it were in that range. So Sony have got a whole bunch of off-the-shelf components, such as, I mean, although you can say, like, you know, a Zeiss lens is a different manufacturer, but they are basically Sony lenses made by Zeiss, so that's an off-the-shelf component, as it were. The sensor and the processor are all Sony, so off the shelf. So Sony have gone and sat down at some point and gone, how can we make a really good RX100 but cheaper? So they get the best bits, the glass, the sensor, and the processor, and then you just build around it. So don't make a metal one because that'll bump up costs, so make a plastic body. Take a focus ring off here and there, that'll reduce cost, less mechanics involved. You've essentially got the same buttons. I mean, people are saying, oh yeah, the giant record button. Well, that's not a giant record button, it's just a record button. But to all intents and purposes, all these buttons are all off-the-shelf buttons and stuff like that. So there is nothing in there at that point which is going to, like, you know, cost them any more money. In fact, it cost them cheaper to make it compared to, say, an RX 107. Then what you do, you go, okay, well, let's take the flash off and then let's take a couple of other bits out and stuff like that. We don't need that viewfinder because that's going to bump costs. So you take all that stuff out, and then what you do, you go, and what we'll do, we'll finally put that swivel out screen that everyone keeps asking for. Now, at that point, you've stripped down an RX 100 and taken some of the most expensive bits on, but you've put in all the really good bits inside to do with the picture and stuff. Because let me make one thing clear here. This can take a fantastic picture, whether that be stills or for video. It is well capable of a fantastic picture. I just don't think that the camera itself was designed for vlogging from the ground up. Anyways, so you've got yourself a very stripped down but capable RX 100 at this point, made of plastic, less mechanical parts, usage of the same buttons, all that stuff, but using the great sensor, the great lens, and the great processor. And then what you do, you then put the flippy out screen on like that. Now at that point, some people will say, but Dave, surely that flippy out screen actually is telling you straight away it was meant to have been a vlogging camera. Well, no, because what it is, Sony have been getting hounded for a long time to do this anyway on the RX series. So at some point they were going to have to do it. And with this being the latest camera that they've released, why not just do it for this one, and then they can continue doing it for other cameras further down the line. At some point, one camera had to have it on. And don't forget, it's not like it's technology that they haven't already done before, because this camera that I'm on right now, which is an AX100, that's how its LCD works. It comes out the side of the body like that, and then it just flips around and faces forward like that. So Sony have been doing this for a long time anyway. They just hadn't done it on an RX100 series. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a stripped down RX100. And it was meant to be that from its inception, from its first initial design stages, but just somewhere once they got to the end of it, somebody in the marketing department turned around and said, let's call it this instead. Now there's two main functions of this camera which I think preclude it from being a proper dedicated vlogging camera, and whether that be selfie vlogging or not, there's two things about it. It's field of view and it's stabilization. Now first of all, the field of view. Now Sony is saying it's a 24mm equivalent. Well, it isn't. It just is not. And the reason why it isn't is because once you're in 4K and you've got the stabilizer on, it's more like over 30mm equivalent for its focal length, which obviously means a much reduced field of view as well. Now, if you were going to design a camera from the ground up and you were going to call it a vlogging camera and it was going to be 4K, you would make sure that the stabilization and the actual lens and the cropping and all that stuff would have been taken into account before you give the final minimum focal distance and stuff like that. So, for me personally, if I'd have been designing this, I would have gone, okay, so we're selling it as 4K and we're selling it for vlogging. So what we do, we put its stabilizer on, put it into 4K, and then we measure the field of view from that point. And then that's what we say the field of view is. And then what we'll do off that, then we can say its minimum focal distance is X, right? That's what you would do if you were being completely honest about what you were doing. But the only way that you supposedly get 24mm out of this, and I still don't believe it is 24mm equivalent, and that is if you put it into 1080 and switch off all the stabilization. Well, at that point, it's not a vlogging camera, and it most certainly isn't a 4K vlogging camera. And then we get to the stabilization as well. The stabilization in this camera is only average, and it doesn't better anything else in the Sony range. All what I'm saying is there are other Sony cameras which are just as good because they also have active stabilization as well. There are video cameras in the Sony range that do this, where they have like a basic optical and then they have the addition of an EIS, which then they call an active mode. So there's nothing special about its stabilization or anything like that either. Anyways, I think, that'll kind of sum it up. There are a few other things I could go into there as well, but I think that is proper, foil hat stuff, I think. Anyways, yeah, so let us know what you think there, and, if you think there's any validity within what I'm saying, because, like I say, it is something that I noticed as soon as I done the unboxing. I was very skeptical as to what was going on, because none of this stuff was mentioned on the main box and stuff and all the rest of it, and plus also those two functions of the camera which would make it a great or perfect vlogging camera are just far too lacking in it. Now, if you're interested in this stuff that I'm doing with the Sony ZV-1, if you go to www.sonyzv1.com, you will see all my Sony ZV-1 videos when you go to that URL, take you to my playlist. Also, as well, if you found this video entertaining or insightful in any way, please give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to my channel and clicking that bell notification icon thing for whatever that's worth. And the last thing that remains for me to say right now, before everyone starts going, he really has lost it, he's a serious crank, is I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.